The heavy wooden door of Judge Marcus Langford's chambers closed with a deep, resonant thud that echoed through the dark-paneled room. Evan Rhodes flinched at the sound, even though Marcus had closed the door gently. After hours in holding, even a soft noise felt like a threat. Evan stood near the entrance, his hands trembling faintly, part exhaustion, part fear, and part something he couldn't name yet. He'd expected to be taken to a jail cell after the police caught him slipping into an abandoned storage yard. Instead, the officers brought him straight to Judge Langford, a man known for his strict decisions and even stricter morals. The difference here was that tonight, the courthouse was long closed. No clerks. No bailiffs. No prosecutors. Only the faint golden glow of a single desk lamp spilling warm light across the room. "Sit," Marcus said quietly, motioning toward a leather chair near his desk. Evan obeyed, lowering himself slowly. His throat was dry. His heart hammered. He could feel Marcus's presence before he even saw him cross the room, slow, steady footsteps, deliberate but not unkind. Judge Marcus Langford was not the man Evan expected. Older, yes. Broad-shouldered. Salt and pepper hair brushed neatly back. Lines at the corners of his eyes, not from cruelty, but from thinking too much, carrying too much. His presence filled the room without needing to raise his voice. He settled behind his desk and looked at Evan for a long moment. Not judging. Observing. "You're 24, correct?" Marcus asked. Evan nodded. "Yes, sir." The "sir" slipped out naturally, and he regretted it instantly. He didn't want to sound like he was trying to please a judge. But Marcus didn't react. If anything, something softened in his stern expression. "You were caught trespassing. Attempting to steal," Marcus said. "You have no prior record. You live alone. No stable employment." Everything about the judge's tone said, "I am stating facts, not attacking you." Evan swallowed. "Yes, sir." Marcus leaned back. "Why were you there?" Evan hesitated. The truth felt small, embarrassing. "I needed money. I haven't worked in weeks. Rent is due. And I thought maybe there'd be tools in the yard I could pawn." He lowered his head. "Bad idea. I know." To Evan's surprise, Marcus didn't sigh or scold him. Instead, he asked, "And what would you do differently, given another chance?" Evan looked up. I don't know. Try to be better, I guess." Marcus tapped a pen lightly against the desk, thinking. Then he stood and walked toward the wide window behind his desk, staring out into the dark, deserted street. When he turned back, his eyes held something Evan couldn't place. "You understand," Marcus said, "that I could recommend charges that would follow you for the rest of your life." Evan nodded again. Fear clawed up his chest. Marcus walked closer, stopping just in front of the desk. "But I won't. Not tonight." Evan blinked. "What?" "I'm offering you an alternative." Marcus's voice dropped lower, dark velvet against the quiet room. "You are not going to jail tonight. You are going to stay here. In your chambers." "Yes." Evan's breath hitched. "Why?" Marcus's expression remained calm, steady. "Because I want to look at you and see something other than fear. I want to know who you really are, not what a report says. And I want to know whether there is something worth saving in you before the system swallows you whole." The words didn't sound like a judge's decree. They sounded like something closer, something private. "And what's the condition?" Evan asked quietly. Marcus stepped closer until only the desk separated them. "You stay the night here. Under my supervision. No lies. No running. No pretending." Evan's lips parted. "Just stay?" "Just stay," Marcus repeated, but his eyes held layers of meaning. Loneliness, longing, curiosity, something human and warm beneath all the authority. Evan didn't know what kind of night awaited him in this private space, but something inside whispered that the judge didn't want power over him, he wanted something else. Connection. "Do you accept?" Marcus asked. Evan nodded slowly. "Yes. I accept." And for the first time that night, Marcus smiled, softly, sincerely. "Good," he said. "Then let's begin." Marcus watched Evan with the quiet intensity of a man who never wasted movements or words. The judge locked the outer chamber door, not to imprison him, but to ensure complete privacy. Then he dimmed the lamp slightly, giving the room a softer glow. "Take a breath," Marcus said. "You look like you're expecting chains." Evan tried to laugh, but it came out shaky. "I don't know what to expect, sir." "Start by using my name," Marcus said mildly. "At least when we are alone." Evan blinked. Marcus. The judge exhaled, almost as if hearing his own name spoken gently by this young stranger did something to him. Something he didn't show in court. Marcus gestured toward a small seating area by a bookshelf. Come. Evan followed. They sat across from each other, Marcus in a sturdy armchair, Evan on a cushioned bench. The judge leaned forward. Tell me about your life, Marcus said. Not your mistakes. Your life. Evan hesitated. No one had ever asked him that. Not even people who claimed to care. I grew up in a small place, Evan began. Parents weren't around much. I moved out at 18. Tried community college but couldn't afford it. Worked in cafes, construction, whatever I could get. And now? Marcus asked. Now I'm just trying to survive, Evan said honestly. Some weeks I do. Some weeks I don't. Marcus nodded slowly. I know what it is to try to survive. Evan frowned. You? You're a judge. I wasn't always, Marcus replied, voice softer now. And even now, survival takes forms you might not expect. There was something in his tone, something tired, personal. Evan leaned forward without realizing it. What do you mean? He asked. Marcus looked down at his hands. It means that power doesn't protect you from loneliness. Respect doesn't keep your home warm. And a title is a very poor substitute for someone who looks at you as if you matter. Evan's chest tightened. Marcus raised his gaze. And tonight, someone walked into my chambers, who matters. A warmth spread across Evan's skin, uneasy but strangely comforting. Why me? Evan whispered. I'm nobody. You're not nobody, Marcus said firmly. You walked in here scared but honest. You didn't beg. You didn't lie. You didn't pretend innocence. And you looked at me like you saw a person, not a job. Evan swallowed. Most people don't talk to a judge like this. Marcus's lips curved faintly. Most people don't stay in my chambers overnight. Something electric passed between them, quiet, undeniable. Marcus stood and walked toward a small cabinet. He poured water into 2 glasses and handed one to Evan. Drink. Your hands are shaking. Evan did. His pulse steadied slowly. You're warm, Marcus observed. Evan flushed. I'm nervous. Don't be, Marcus said softly. You're safe here. The words wrapped around Evan like a blanket. Safety was something he rarely felt, and never in the presence of a man who commanded a courtroom. Marcus sat beside him now, not across. Not far. Close enough that Evan felt the heat radiating through the fabric of the judge's suit. I don't want you to fear me, Marcus murmured. I don't, Evan replied, surprising himself with how true it felt. Marcus's gaze lowered briefly to Evan's hands, then lifted to his eyes again. Something unspoken hung in the air, heavy but gentle. When you agreed to stay, Marcus said, I made a promise to myself. What promise? That I would not use this night to judge you. Only to know you. Evan's breath caught. Why? Marcus's voice was a low, intimate murmur. Because it has been a long time since someone made me feel awake. Evan's heartbeat stumbled. Awake? Yes. Like I am more than my robe and my rulings. Like I am still capable of wanting something. Evan's cheeks warmed. And what do you want? Marcus looked at him for a long moment, enough to make the room feel warmer, the air thicker. I want to spend this night not as judge and defendant, he said quietly, but as 2 men who found each other by accident, and perhaps for a reason. The honesty in that statement tugged something deep inside Evan. I think I want that too, Evan whispered. Marcus nodded once, slow and almost grateful. Then stay close, he said. We have many hours left, and I do not wish to waste any of them. Silence settled over the chambers, not the cold, formal silence Evan expected from a judge's office, but something softer. Something that felt like the pause a person takes before revealing a part of themselves they usually keep locked away. Marcus rose from the couch slowly, adjusting his sleeves as he walked toward the corner of the room where a small sofa stood near a lamp. Its light was warmer than the desk lamp, its glow almost domestic. He gestured for Evan to join him. Come sit here, Marcus said. Not across the room. I want to speak to you without this distance between us. Evan stood, feeling the weight of the invitation. Every step he took felt like moving deeper into some place he'd never been allowed, like crossing an invisible line between fear and trust. When he sat on the sofa, Marcus took the seat beside him, close enough that their shoulders nearly brushed. Tell me, Marcus asked quietly. When did life start feeling heavy for you? The question hit deeper than Evan expected. He stared at his own hands, fingers twisting in his lap. When I was a kid, I guess, Evan murmured. When I realized no one was coming to help. No one was watching out for me. And that if I messed up, it was just, on me. Marcus listened, not with the polite patience of a judge, but with an ache in his eyes that made Evan feel seen in a way he never had before. What about you? Evan asked after a moment. When did life get heavy for you? Marcus's gaze drifted to the far wall, where shelves filled with legal books cast long shadows. When I turned 40, he finally said. My days became decisions. My nights became solitude. And the older I grew, the more I felt that people stopped seeing the man and only saw the position. Evan tilted his head. Is that why you stay here so late? Why your light was still on tonight? Marcus let out a soft breath, half laugh, half confession. Perhaps, he admitted. It's easier to be alone in this room than alone in my home. Evan swallowed, feeling something twist inside his chest. I don't think you're meant to be alone. Marcus's eyes flicked to him, something fragile beneath the surface. And you? Marcus asked. Do you think you're meant to be alone? Evan hesitated. I don't know. I've always felt like I was temporary in people's lives. Like I'm someone they get tired of. You're wrong, Marcus said softly but firmly. There is nothing temporary about you. The words struck him harder than he expected. Evan blinked fast, trying to keep the sting in his eyes from turning into something more obvious. Marcus noticed, of course he noticed, and his voice softened further. You don't have to be strong right now, Marcus murmured. Not with me. The kindness in that statement hit deeper than anything else tonight. Evan's breath trembled as he looked down, and suddenly he felt Marcus's hand, not grabbing, not demanding, just gently resting on the back of his, warm and steady. You're shaking, Marcus observed. I don't mean to, Evan whispered. It's all right, Marcus murmured. Let yourself feel whatever you're feeling. Evan didn't pull away. Marcus didn't push forward. They just sat there, hands touching, the quiet between them filled with something tender and painfully honest. I don't know why you're being kind to me, Evan whispered. Marcus gave a small, almost sad smile. Because kindness is not a reward. It's not something a person has to earn. And because tonight, I saw someone worth saving. Evan exhaled, the air leaving him shaky. You don't even know me. Then let me know you, Marcus said gently. Let me understand you. Let me hear you. Evan lifted his gaze. And what about you? Who hears you? Marcus blinked, caught off guard. No one, he admitted quietly. Not for a long time. Evan's voice lowered. I'll listen. If you want me to. Marcus stared at him, something unguarded opening in his expression, a vulnerability he likely hid from everyone else. He leaned back slightly, as if gathering courage. My father was a rigid man, Marcus began. Strict. Cold. Nothing I ever did was enough. No achievement, no award, no title. I chased approval that never came, and by the time I became a judge, I realized I had built a life that looked respectable on the outside and hollow on the inside. Evan listened, heart tightening. That sounds lonely. It is, Marcus admitted. Every decision I make affects others. Every word I speak carries weight. But when I go home, I hang up the robe, and I become nothing special. Just a man in an empty house. Evan shifted slightly closer, subtle, instinctive. You're more than that, he said softly. Marcus's throat worked as if swallowing emotion. And you, he whispered, are more than the mistakes you've made. Their hands remained touching, fingers brushing lightly. Not sexual, just human, warm, comforting. The lamps cast a golden glow over Marcus's profile, softening the harsh lines of a life spent carrying responsibility. Evan looked at him and saw not the judge, not the authority, but the man. Just a man. Marcus turned his hand and let his fingers slide gently against Evan's, offering connection without force. Evan, he whispered, do you know why I asked you to stay tonight? Evan's voice barely rose above breath. Why? Because I didn't want you to go into a cold cell thinking your life has no value. I wanted you to see that even in your darkest moment, someone believed in you. Evan's breath shuddered. You believe in me? Yes, Marcus said simply. I do. Something inside Evan cracked open, a wall he'd built over years of disappointment and survival. His eyes burned, and before he could turn away, Marcus gently touched his cheek with the back of his fingers. Don't hide from me, Marcus whispered. Not tonight. Evan didn't hide. For the first time, he let someone see the softness he'd buried. And Marcus offered him the same. Not power. Not demands. Just understanding. Just closeness. Just two men in a quiet room, breaking their walls together. The hour grew late, but neither of them seemed aware of time anymore. The courthouse outside Marcus Langford's chambers had long since fallen silent, the hallways empty, the echo of daytime footsteps replaced with a stillness that felt almost sacred. Inside the softly lit room, Evan and Marcus sat closer than before, their knees nearly touching, their hands resting together between them in uncertain but willing connection. Evan hadn't realized how much he needed the warmth of another person until he felt Marcus's thumb graze gently along the back of his hand. It wasn't flirtation. It wasn't something taken. It was something offered, carefully, like Marcus was testing whether Evan would pull away. He didn't. I keep expecting to wake up, Evan admitted quietly. This feels unreal. Like tomorrow I'll be in a cell, and tonight will feel like something I imagined. Marcus shook his head. Tonight is real. And tomorrow is another matter entirely. The words hung between them, heavy with meaning. Not a threat, not a promise, just truth. Marcus shifted, turning slightly so he could face Evan more directly. You've spent most of your life waiting for something bad to happen, haven't you? Evan looked down again, embarrassed by how easily Marcus saw through him. Yeah. That's just normal for me. If something good happens, it's usually because something worse is coming. Marcus's jaw tightened, not in judgment but in quiet anger at the world that had shaped this young man before him. You deserve gentleness, Marcus said. You deserve a chance to breathe without fear. Evan inhaled shakily. I don't know how to do that. Then let tonight teach you, Marcus murmured. The lamp beside them flickered warmly, casting a soft halo of gold around them. Evan noticed the faintest trace of tiredness in Marcus's eyes, tiredness that wasn't from the hour, but from years of carrying burdens alone. Can I ask you something? Evan said suddenly. Of course. Evan shifted, almost shy. Why did you never marry? Or date? Someone like you could have anyone. A bitter laugh escaped Marcus, the sound of a man who'd spent too many years hiding behind professionalism and loneliness. You think my position makes love easy? Marcus asked softly. No. It makes it complicated. People see the robe, the power. They don't see the person. Some are intimidated. Some want something from me. And some, he paused, considering his words. Some simply cannot accept the man beneath the title. Evan studied him. And what kind of man is beneath it? Something vulnerable flickered across Marcus's expression. A man who feels deeply. Who wants connection. Who longs for someone who sees him without fear or expectation. His voice lowered. A man who, until tonight, had forgotten what it felt like to be looked at with softness. Evan's breath caught. You think I look at you with softness? Marcus's eyes held his. Yes. The silence that followed was full, not empty. Full of possibility, of emotions neither dared name yet but both felt settling between them like something inevitable. How long has it been, Evan asked gently, since someone stayed with you like this? Marcus exhaled slowly. Years. More than a decade, perhaps. My life became consumed by work. By expectations. By distance. I convinced myself I didn't need anyone. And now? Evan asked. Marcus's voice came out low, sincere. Now I am realizing how mistaken I was. Evan felt heat rise in his cheeks. He wasn't someone people missed. He wasn't someone whose presence changed a room. But Marcus looked at him like he was important, like he mattered, and that alone felt dangerous and beautiful. You don't scare me, Evan whispered. Marcus's eyes softened instantly. Most people are scared of me. I'm not most people, Evan replied. A small smile tugged at Marcus's lips. No, you're not. Marcus moved a little closer, not touching, just closing the last inch of space between them. Evan felt the warmth of him, the solid presence, the steady breath that brushed the air between them. Are you tired? Marcus asked. A little, Evan admitted. But I don't want to sleep yet. Nor do I, Marcus said. I don't want this night to rush away. Evan nodded slowly. Me neither. Marcus leaned back slightly, studying him. You are thinking about something. What is it? Evan hesitated. I don't understand why you care. Why you're being this gentle. Why you're letting me stay here when you could have sent me away. Marcus reached out, gently lifting Evan's chin, not controlling, but guiding his gaze upward. Because you walked into my chambers with fear in your eyes but honesty in your voice, Marcus whispered. Because you listened to me without judgment. Because you remind me of a part of myself I thought I had lost. Evan blinked, heart trembling. And what part is that? The part that still believes in people, Marcus said. The part capable of wanting something more than duty. Evan's lips parted. Do you want me to stay close? Yes, Marcus said without hesitation. If you want to. Evan breathed out slowly. I do. Marcus rose silently and walked to a small side table where a folded blanket lay. He unfolded it and draped it softly over the couch, then took a separate one and placed it beside Evan. You will sleep here, Marcus said gently. Not far from me. Where I can see you. Where you can feel safe. Evan nodded slowly. And you? I'll rest in the chair beside you, Marcus said. Not in another room. Not out of sight. Evan's voice softened. Why so close? Marcus hesitated only a moment before answering. Because tonight. I don't want to be alone. Evan swallowed hard, emotion tightening his throat. He watched Marcus move the chair closer to the couch, close enough that if either of them reached out, their hands would meet. Marcus sat, leaning back, exhaustion finally visible across his features. But he looked peaceful too, like having Evan nearby filled something long hollow in him. Evan lowered himself onto the couch, pulling the blanket to his chest. They didn't speak. They didn't need to. The quiet between them was warm, a shared breath in a room that felt too small to hold everything unsaid. Evan's eyes drifted shut, comforted by the soft rhythm of Marcus's breathing. And Marcus watched him for a long, long time, his expression gentle, protective, and full of unspoken affection. The room fell into a deep, velvety quiet, one that belonged only to late hours when the world outside slept. The soft glow from the lamp near the bookshelf cast long shadows across the judge's chambers, creating an atmosphere more intimate than either man anticipated. Evan lay curled under the blanket on the couch, while Marcus sat mere inches away in the armchair, his posture relaxed for the first time in hours. But sleep didn't come easily to either of them. Evan shifted under the blanket and glanced at Marcus, who seemed lost in thought. His eyes were open, reflecting the lamp's warm glow, and his hands were loosely clasped in his lap. You're awake, Evan whispered. Marcus turned his head, offering a faint smile. So are you. Evan let out a breathy laugh. Hard to sleep when my mind won't shut up. Marcus nodded knowingly. Tell me what's keeping you awake. Evan hesitated, pulling the blanket tighter around himself. It's just, everything. Today. You. This room. I'm trying to understand why I don't feel scared anymore. Marcus leaned slightly forward, elbows resting on his knees. And what do you feel instead? Evan met his gaze, eyes vulnerable. Safe. Which is weird. I've never felt safe with someone I barely know. Marcus's expression softened. Sometimes safety isn't about time. It's about sincerity. Evan swallowed. And you've been sincere with me tonight. More than anyone in years. Marcus shifted, his voice low. And you've been honest with me. That is, rare. The silence that followed wasn't heavy. It was full, of emotion, of questions left hanging between them. Evan sat up a little, propping himself on his elbow. Can I ask you something? And you don't have to answer if you don't want to. Marcus nodded. You may ask me anything. Evan took a breath. Have you ever felt something for someone you weren't supposed to? Someone younger. Someone who looked at you in a way that made you feel alive again. Marcus's breath caught, but only barely. His eyes flickered with something intense, something he'd been holding back all night. Yes, he said quietly. I have. Evan's heart thudded harder. And, did you tell them? Marcus looked down at his clasped hands. No. I didn't. I was too afraid of misusing my position. Too afraid of wanting something I believed was forbidden. Evan's voice softened. Is that how you feel now? Marcus lifted his gaze slowly, meeting Evan's eyes with an honesty that felt like confession. Yes. And no. What does that mean? It means, Marcus said carefully, that I feel something when I look at you. Something warm. Something protective. Something I haven't felt in years. He paused. But it also means I refuse to act on anything that could harm you or make you feel pressured. Evan's expression softened, emotion flickering across his face. I don't feel pressured. I know, Marcus murmured. But you are vulnerable. And I will not take advantage of that. Evan shifted again, fully sitting up now, blanket pooling around his waist. Marcus, you've done nothing but treat me like a human being tonight. Maybe the only person who has, in a long time. Marcus's breath trembled again. Evan noticed. That's why I'm not scared of you, Evan continued. That's why I'm not confused. And that's why I can tell you this. He paused, lowering his voice to a whisper. You make me feel wanted. Not as a defendant, not as a problem. As a person. Marcus stared at him, really stared, as if the words were something he never expected to hear again. I didn't know I wanted that, Evan added. But I do. Marcus closed his eyes for a moment, trying to steady the emotion in his chest. Evan. Evan slid one hand from beneath the blanket and reached toward Marcus. He didn't grab. Didn't demand. He simply laid his hand gently on Marcus's forearm. Marcus inhaled sharply, a small, startled sound he didn't have time to hide. You're shaking too, Evan whispered. Marcus opened his eyes. Because I am trying very hard to be the man I should be, while also being the man I want to be. Evan tilted his head. And who do you want to be? Marcus answered without hesitation. A man who earns your trust. Evan's expression flickered, surprise, gratitude, tenderness all at once. You already have some of it. Marcus's voice became barely audible. And what about the rest? Evan scooted slightly closer on the couch, enough that their knees brushed, soft and accidental, but charged with something that made both of them breathe in sharply. The rest, Evan said softly, depends on what happens tonight. Marcus swallowed. Tonight is meant to be safe for you. Healing. Honest. And I feel all those things, Evan whispered. That's why I'm asking you to be honest with me too. Marcus hesitated. Then, with a quiet exhale, he said the words he'd been holding inside. I don't want this night to end. Evan's heart jumped. Then it doesn't have to. Marcus's hand moved, slowly, cautiously, until his fingers brushed against Evan's. Evan slipped his hand into Marcus's without needing invitation. The warmth between their palms felt like something sealing, something being decided. I want to understand you, Marcus murmured. Not as a man in trouble. As a man. Evan nodded. Then ask me anything. Marcus studied him for a moment. What do you want, Evan? Truly? Evan's throat tightened. To not be alone. To feel like I matter to someone. To not be treated like a mistake. Marcus's eyes softened with something deep. You matter to me tonight. And not because of your circumstances. Evan blinked quickly to steady himself. And you matter to me, Marcus. More than I expected. Marcus's breath trembled, just once. Then he released a slow breath, like he'd been holding it for too long. The room felt smaller now, warmer, as if their shared honesty shifted the air itself. Evan lay back down slowly, but not fully. He left room against the back of the couch, an unspoken invitation for Marcus to stay close. And Marcus did. He settled back in the chair but leaned toward Evan, their hands still loosely intertwined, fingers brushing rhythmically. The night outside stretched on, deep and quiet, while inside the judge's chambers, two lonely men let confession dissolve the last walls between them. Neither spoke again for a long time. They didn't need to. The room itself felt like it was breathing with them. Together. The quiet of the night deepened into something heavier, softer, almost sacred. The world outside Judge Marcus Langford's chambers remained untouched. No footsteps in the hall, no distant cars, no murmurs of city life. Only the faint hum of the courthouse heating system and the slow rhythm of two men breathing in the same quiet room filled the air. Evan lay half reclined against the couch cushions now, the blanket draped loosely over him. Marcus sat close in the armchair, leaning forward enough that their joined hands rested between them. The warm pressure of Marcus's palm felt strangely grounding, almost like an anchor that kept Evan steady in a moment that should have overwhelmed him. Neither spoke for several minutes. They simply existed together, an older man rediscovering the beating heart beneath his robe, and a younger man feeling seen for the first time in years. It was Evan who finally broke the silence. Marcus, he whispered, can I tell you something without you thinking less of me? Marcus turned toward him instantly. You can tell me anything. Evan took a breath. I'm scared of what happens tomorrow. Because of the case. No, Evan said softly. Because I don't want tonight to be the only time I ever see you like this. Marcus inhaled sharply, not loudly, but enough for Evan to hear. The honesty of it startled even Marcus himself. Tonight is not something I will forget, Marcus said gently. And I don't want it to be the last time we speak. Evan's eyes softened. You mean that? Marcus nodded. Yes. I don't say things I don't mean. Evan exhaled in relief, some of the tightness in his chest loosening. What about you? Marcus asked. What scares you most? Evan didn't have to think long. Being forgotten. Being nothing to someone. Marcus's throat tightened visibly. Evan, listen to me. Evan looked up. You are not nothing, Marcus said. You walked into my chambers tonight with nothing but fear and honesty, and I saw a man who deserves more than society ever gave him. Evan blinked rapidly. That's a lot for me to hear. It should be, Marcus replied. Because it's true. For a moment, Evan looked as though he might cry. He pressed the back of his hand briefly to his eyes, then lowered it again. You're going to make me soft, Evan said with a shaky laugh. You already are soft, Marcus replied gently. You've just been punished for it, so you learned how to hide it. Is that what you think? Evan whispered. That's what I see. Evan felt his heartbeat thrum in his chest. You see more than you should. Only because I care more than I expected, Marcus murmured. A silence filled with meaning stretched between them again. Marcus shifted in his chair, his thumb instinctively brushing along Evan's knuckles in a slow, soothing motion. Your hands are cold, Marcus said softly. Evan smiled faintly. Yours are warm. Marcus lifted Evan's hand slightly, just enough to cover it with both of his. Better? The warmth that spread from Marcus's touch wasn't just physical. It settled into Evan's chest, stirring emotions he couldn't hide anymore. You're good at this, Evan whispered. At what? Making someone feel safe. Marcus swallowed, his voice lowering. I never had anyone to make me feel that way. Maybe that's why I offer it so easily. Evan tilted his head slightly. Who made you feel safe last? If you don't mind me asking. Marcus let out a breath he didn't know he'd been holding. My mother. She passed when I was in my early 30s. Since then, I suppose I built walls instead of relationships. Why? Because walls can't leave, Marcus said simply. Evan's heart ached at the quiet honesty in that answer. And tonight? Are your walls still up? Marcus looked directly at him. Not with you. The air grew heavier, dense with something neither of them dared name, but both of them felt in their bones. Evan inched slightly closer on the couch. Marcus. HM? Can I sit there? Evan asked softly, nodding toward the spot right beside the judge's chair, closer, within easy reach. Marcus hesitated, not out of refusal, but out of carefulness. If you want to. I do. Marcus stood slowly, giving Evan room to shift. Evan scooted to the edge of the couch, and Marcus settled beside him, not on the armchair now, but right next to him, sharing the same cushion, the same breath of space. Evan felt Marcus's warmth instantly, their shoulders brushing lightly. You're trembling, Marcus murmured. You make me nervous, Evan confessed. I don't want you to be afraid of me. I'm not afraid, Evan said. Just aware. Marcus smiled softly. I am aware of you too. Evan's breath hitched, and he lowered his eyes. Is it wrong to feel this? Marcus considered him carefully. Is it wrong to want connection? Comfort? Understanding? He shook his head. No. What's wrong is when someone abuses trust. And I won't. I know, Evan whispered. The room felt impossibly warm now. Evan shifted again, more relaxed this time, leaning lightly against Marcus. The older man's breath caught at the contact, but he didn't move away. Instead, Marcus lifted an arm, hesitating, asking silently, and Evan nodded, allowing himself to lean fully against Marcus's side. The judge wrapped a gentle arm around him. Just enough to be protective, not possessive. Evan closed his eyes, overwhelmed by the simple intimacy of it. You're warm, he murmured. Marcus let out a soft breath into Evan's hair. You fit against me perfectly. They sat like that for several minutes, Evan resting his head against Marcus's shoulder, Marcus holding him with the caution and tenderness of someone who had forgotten what closeness felt like. I haven't held someone in years, Marcus confessed quietly. Evan smiled without opening his eyes. You're doing fine. Marcus let out a soft, breathy laugh, one Evan felt rumble gently through the judge's chest. You're going to make it very hard to let you go in the morning, Marcus admitted. Then don't, Evan whispered. Marcus stilled, breath catching for a moment. Evan. Evan lifted his head, meeting Marcus's eyes with raw vulnerability. I don't want to go back to being alone tomorrow. Marcus's gaze softened, sorrow threading through his expression. Neither do I. Evan reached up, gently touching Marcus's cheek with the back of his fingers, mirroring the same touch the judge had offered earlier. Marcus leaned into it instinctively, eyes fluttering closed for a moment he couldn't hide. You're lonely too, Evan murmured. Yes, Marcus whispered. But tonight, less so. Evan lowered his head again, leaning into Marcus's shoulder. The judge held him tighter, not in a possessive way, but with the fragile relief of a man who had been cold for years and only now felt warmth returning to his skin. The clock on the wall ticked softly, marking time neither of them wanted to acknowledge. Dawn was still hours away. But both of them already feared the moment it would come. Tonight wasn't about rules anymore. It was about two men finding something they never expected to find. Comfort. Closeness. And the first fragile threads of love. The clock on the far wall ticked past 4 in the morning, but Evan and Marcus clung to the quiet of the night as though holding time still could save them from the day that waited just beyond the window. The lamps cast a deep amber glow that softened everything, the shelves of legal books, the polished wooden desk, the tired lines around Marcus's eyes, and the gentle curve of Evan's shoulders as he leaned against the older man's chest. For a long time, neither spoke. The closeness between them had become natural, unforced. Evan rested comfortably in Marcus's arms, their breaths falling into the same slow rhythm. Marcus's hand moved in quiet patterns across Evan's back, steady, protective, as if relearning the shape of human connection after years of solitude. Eventually, Evan stirred. Marcus, he whispered. HM? Are you happy I stayed? Marcus didn't answer at first. He closed his eyes, taken by the weight of the question. When he finally spoke, his voice was soft and almost unsteady. Yes, he said. More than I can say. Evan's fingers curled into the fabric of Marcus's shirt. I need it tonight. Marcus's hand paused for a moment on Evan's back, then continued tracing gentle lines. So did I. Evan lifted his head slightly to look at him. I didn't think someone like you could ever feel alone. Marcus offered a sad smile. People in positions of authority are often the loneliest. Everyone expects something from us, but no one sees us. Evan nodded. I see you. Marcus's breath caught, and he didn't hide the emotion that flickered across his face. And I see you, he whispered. That simple exchange felt like the heart of everything that had happened between them. No courtroom titles, no age gap, no fear. Just recognition, one soul noticing another in a world that often looked past both of them. The courthouse heater hummed gently in the background. Evan's head found Marcus's shoulder again, fitting there as if it belonged. But after a moment, Evan spoke again. Marcus, what happens now? Marcus inhaled slowly, steadying himself. What do you want to happen? Evan took a shaky breath. I want a chance. To see you again. Not as a judge and a defendant. Just, as two people who found each other. Marcus tightened his arm around him, gentle, protective. I want that too. Evan blinked. You do? Yes, Marcus said without hesitation. But I also want to do this right. Whatever happens between us must be honest, safe, and free of obligation. I will not let your situation tonight define your choices tomorrow. Evan nodded, his voice trembling. I'm not saying this because I owe you anything. I know that. I'm saying it because sitting here with you, it's the first time I felt like someone wanted me around. Marcus's chest ached at those words. I do want you around. Evan swallowed. Then don't let this be the last time. Marcus looked down at him, brushing a thumb over Evan's cheek. Not romantic like a lover, emotional like someone who had been starved of human warmth and was rediscovering it one heartbeat at a time. I won't, Marcus murmured. But when the sun rises, we will talk about how to move forward fairly. I want you to stand on your own feet, not because you must, but because you deserve to. Evan leaned into his hand. I want to. With you in my life. Marcus's eyes softened. Then we'll find a way. They fell into another stillness, calm, close, trusting. But the night began to thin along the edges. A faint line of pale blue spread across the base of the window curtains. Dawn was near. Evan saw it first and tensed. It's morning. Marcus looked up at the dimming stars beyond the glass. Not yet. A few minutes still. Evan shook his head. I don't want this night to end. Marcus's voice lowered. Neither do I. Evan sat up slightly, the blanket slipping from his shoulders. Can I ask you something? And please be honest. Always. If this wasn't your chambers, if I wasn't someone who got in trouble tonight, if you met me in the world like a normal person, would you still want to be near me? Marcus looked at him, really looked at him, and answered with gentle certainty. Yes, he said. I would. Evan's breath hitched softly. Then, maybe what we felt tonight isn't wrong. It isn't, Marcus replied. It's human. Evan leaned forward slightly, just enough that their foreheads almost touched. He didn't move closer, he simply breathed the same air, shared the same closeness, gave Marcus the choice to bridge the remaining distance. Marcus lifted a hand and rested it on the side of Evan's neck, his thumb brushing once along Evan's jawline in a gesture that carried more depth than any kiss could. Evan, he whispered, you matter. Not because of this night. Not because of your situation. You matter because you are kind, honest, and full of a gentleness you shouldn't have had to hide. Evan's eyes glistened. And you matter because you finally let someone see you. A soft, emotional silence fell between them. Marcus's thumb brushed Evan's skin one more time before he pulled back slowly, never breaking eye contact. The light outside grew slightly brighter. We have minutes, Marcus said quietly. But not many. Evan nodded. Then spend them with me. Marcus rose, offering his hand. Evan took it without hesitation, and Marcus guided him slowly toward the larger sofa beside the window, its cushions deep enough for both of them to sit together and watch the morning arrive. They sat side by side, shoulders touching, sharing a blanket Marcus draped over them. Outside, the first pale hints of dawn stretched across the horizon. Evan rested his head on Marcus's shoulder again. I don't want to say goodbye. Marcus kissed the top of his hair softly, an act of affection without crossing any line. This is not goodbye. Evan closed his eyes. Promise. Marcus tightened his arm around him. I promise. They watched the first rays of dawn spill across the courthouse windows, a quiet, fragile beginning after a night full of connection neither had expected but both desperately needed. When the sunlight finally touched the floor at their feet, Marcus whispered. When the sun rises fully, we will talk. And we will choose a path that keeps you safe, and keeps this, whatever we're building, honest. Evan lifted his head. I want that. Marcus nodded. So do I. And as the new day finally broke over the city, Marcus held Evan close, two lonely souls who found a sliver of hope in a single night, promising each other that morning didn't have to mean ending. It could mean beginning.